Thomas was driving south on Route 50 when the song came on. He had the window down. It was a Tuesday afternoon in June, and the corn was high on both sides of the road, and he had been thinking about nothing in particular, or trying to, when the radio changed what was in the truck. He had heard Marvin Gaye before, knew the name, knew the records his sister played. This was different. This was a voice asking a question that Thomas had been refusing to ask himself for 2 years. He pulled to the shoulder. He didn't know why. He sat with the engine running and the corn on both sides and the radio on and let the whole thing play. Nobody passed. Nobody saw. Just a man in a truck on a county road in Ohio who had found, completely without looking for it, the exact thing he needed. Thomas Aldrich was 38 years old and worked at a feed and supply store in Chillicothe, Ohio. He had lived in Ross County his entire life, born there, schooled there, married there, raising his 2 daughters there in a house his father had built. It was a life that fit the landscape it occupied, which was the most he had ever asked of it. His younger brother Eddie had been 24 when he was drafted in 1968. Thomas had driven him to the induction center in Columbus on a Monday morning in February and watched him go through the door. He had waited in the parking lot for 45 minutes before he understood that he was not going to see Eddie come back out. He drove home. He didn't tell anyone he had waited. Eddie did not come back. The telegram arrived in November of 1969. Thomas's mother kept it in a drawer in the kitchen. His father did not speak about it. His wife held him in the kitchen the night the telegram arrived, and he did not cry, which he had not understood at the time, and did not understand now, 2 years later, driving south on Route 50 on a Tuesday afternoon with the window down. The song that came through the radio was called Mercy, Mercy Me. He did not know the title at the time. He did not know that it was from an album called What's Going On that had been out for 6 weeks and was being played on stations across the country to an audience that had been waiting, apparently, for a record that acknowledged what the world had become. What Thomas knew, sitting in the truck on the shoulder of Route 50, was that the voice coming through the speaker was talking about something he recognized, the specific texture of a world that had gone wrong in ways that the language available to him had never adequately described. The tenderness in it, the way it didn't raise its voice, the way it asked rather than accused. He sat there for the length of the song. Then another song came on, different, also gentle, also asking something. He sat for that one, too. He did not know, sitting on the shoulder of that county road, that he was listening to an album that had been made partly out of another man's experience of the same war, partly out of another man's grief for the people it had taken. He didn't know any of that. He only knew what the music felt like coming through the truck speakers on a Tuesday afternoon in June. What it felt like was someone had said it. Someone had taken the thing that Thomas had been carrying in a form that had no shape and given it a shape. Not explained it, not resolved it, just held it in a way that made it possible to look at directly, briefly, before the song ended and the road was still there, and the corn was still there, and the truck engine was still running. He pulled back onto the road. He drove to the store, finished his shift, drove home, ate dinner with his wife and daughters. He didn't mention the truck on the shoulder to anyone. There was nothing to mention. A man had pulled over on a county road and listened to the radio. That was all. But he went to the record store in Chillicothe the following Saturday and asked for the album. The clerk found it. Thomas bought it and took it home, and played it on the turntable in the living room while his wife was out with the girls. He listened to it all the way through. His wife asked what he was listening to when she came home. He said, "It's a Marvin Gaye album." She looked at the cover and set it back down on the table. His daughters asked if they could play outside. He said yes. He played the album many times over the following months. He never explained to anyone why. It was not something he knew how to explain. He had not cried at the telegram. He had not cried at the funeral. He had not cried driving home from the induction center after he understood that the 45 minutes of waiting had been for nothing. But there was something in that album, in the specific quality of the voice asking what's going on, in the way it carried both grief and the refusal to surrender to grief, that located something in Thomas that had not been located before. He never met Marvin Gaye. He never wrote a letter. He never told anyone, not even his wife, about the afternoon on Route 50. It seemed like the kind of thing that became smaller if you tried to describe it, the way some experiences only stay intact if you don't disturb them with words. Marvin Gaye died in 1984. Thomas read about it in the paper. He was 49 by then. The girls were grown. His father had died the previous winter. He read the article at the kitchen table over his second cup of coffee, the same table where his mother had kept the telegram in a drawer. And then he folded the paper and set it aside. He thought about Route 50, the corn high on both sides, the engine running, the voice coming through the speaker asking a question that Thomas, on a Tuesday afternoon in June of 1971, had been the only person for miles around to hear. Some things you receive without being able to explain why they arrived when they did. Some voices find you when you're not looking, on a county road with the window down, and say exactly what you needed someone to say. Thomas never told anyone. He kept the album until it wore out. Then he bought another copy. He still had it in 1984. He probably still had it years after that. The corn is still high on Route 50 in June. The road is still there. The shoulder where he pulled over is still there. He never drove past it without remembering. Not the full weight of it, not every time, but enough. A man in a truck, alone, listening to a voice he had never heard before say the thing he had never been able to say himself.